This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners can save 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. If you're a fan of Michigan and you've seen now that they've advanced to the Final Four, The Athletic has in-depth features. They've done great work covering Michigan on their run to the Final Four. Don't miss out. Visit theathletic.com/DSP. Subscribe and save 20%.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I had to think for a second where I was because I almost spit out radio, like where I was on the radio.
It's okay. You can do that.
I'm a little tired, but I'm here.
You always show up, Jason. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
I show up most of the time, and I try to give you a little bit of lead time if I'm not going to be there. But and even sometimes I do just cancel any last minute. But anyways, I am Jason Jarvi. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvi the King. With me, as always, the guy who's on every other podcast on this network, John the Doc Macaroon. What up?
What do you think of the swag I got you?
I like it. I was definitely skeptical. I got my brand new Detroit Sports Podcast at Adidas. I'm not sure if you call it a track jacket or some sort of windbreaker, but it's nice. I'm always skeptical of athletic type clothing because I'm a bigger gentleman. So I always know, even though I gave you my size, a lot of times it runs very small, and this actually fits very well. I think I like it. I'm sure my wife will she might actually like it too.
Shout out to Vito. He took care of it for us. You know, we got great sponsors all over here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And as we are doing more things, I said, look, we got to represent. I got myself a hat. So as always, it starts with me. I wear the stuff out and I'm like, you know what? Let me take care of the fellas. Let me just go out there, get with Vito and put our logo on some more stuff because look, we've done a lot of great things. I think more people need to know what we're about. And I think via social media, I think with our work covering the events, the big events in town, I just want people to continue to know about us. And I'm thankful that it fits you very good. You gave us the size, and look, Vito would have took care of you. If it didn't fit, we'd get you a 4XL, whatever it is. So no big deal.
I do think I'm going to be heading to a Tigers game next Monday, and which actually, letting you know right now, going to be at the Tigers game, so won't be able to record. But anyways, it's...
Is it an afternoon game?
Yeah, it's an afternoon game.
Okay.
So it's the day after Easter. My wife's off. She's on her break, and we're going to be going and catching a Tigers game.
Who are they playing? Is it
the Royals? So interdivision matchup already.
Let's start with that. That's no problem. I think that on this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant, we got a lot to get to. We're definitely later on going to break down Michigan State, talk maybe a little bit about the Lions and some of their signings and what we see ahead now, getting closer to the draft. But the Tigers are about to open their season. Probably in terms of, you know, the buzz going on regarding the Detroit Tigers, no buzz. You know, usually when I'm out and about, people will come up to me and say, hey, what do you think of the Tigers? What do you think of the Pistons? What do you think about what's going on with the Red Wings? And this is really weird in that when a team like Michigan overtakes the state in terms of performing really well, getting to the Final Four, it's a big deal. And it has overshadowed the start of the season for the Detroit Tigers, one in which they got to try to do their absolute best to get as many eyeballs on them as possible this season because of the fact that going into it, we all know it's just one of those seasons where the expectation of winning is not there. But at the same time, it is, you know, the start of spring. It does represent newness. There is some talent on this team in terms of, you know, Jordan Zimmerman, Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, Michael Fulmer. There are some storylines that we can peek into, but it's just most of the people I do feel like don't really care right now at the start of the season. They're going to take the wait-and-see approach, see how the first 9 games go. I'm pretty excited. First 6 games out of 9 at home, 2 series at Comerica Park. Maybe you can do some things.
You know, and I know there isn't buzz on this team. And I certainly don't expect them to come out and set the world on fire, but I think there's definitely some possibilities here. You know, from what we've seen in spring training, I think Leonis Martin he's a pretty solid pickup. He's not going to be, you know, probably not an all-star, but you never know. If Miguel Cabrera can return to form, if Nick Castellanos can actually do some things, you know, we may not be a horrible team and we may not be horrible to watch. It's all just going to really depend on what we get from our stars and what kind of development we can get from our younger players, specifically a guy like Jaimer Candelario. How do you say that?
Yep, Jaimer Candelario.
Jaimer? Jaimer. I'm just going to call him that because Candelario. Oh, I got it. Jaimer Candelario. There you go. He's going to be an interesting guy to watch. Going to probably batting second in the lineup. I know you had high hopes from last season when he came on, and you wanted him to be that guy who just came immediately on and was, you know, the best player in baseball. And did he live up to your expectations, John?
Well, at least so far in spring training, he hit a home run on Sunday. So going into the season, everybody's going to be watching for development. That's what we're going to see. But I don't know if you listened. Some interviews have come out now regarding comparisons from Ron Gardenhire to the previous manager, Brad Ausmus. And it is interesting sometimes when you're in it, you don't hear a little bit of the critiques going on, but you can kind of see it in terms of the play. Some of the players, former players that played for Brad Ausmus have come out this season and said, look, Ron Gardenhire is a little bit more approachable. He's a little bit nicer. We can actually walk into the room and have a conversation with him. And they actually said something that was really interesting in that they said, when there's a mistake, it's usually being looked at right now, right away. Whereas Brad Ausmus, when he had a veteran-laden team, kind of just assumed that, look, it's a mistake, players make it, and he wouldn't correct it. He wouldn't go out there and challenge these veterans. And so that's a big knock on Brad Ausmus, one that we all saw, in that when mistakes were made, Brad Ausmus kind of took the stance of, look, these guys are professionals. He was more hands-off. I don't believe that's a way to be successful. If you see a mistake, if you see, you know, a throw not being hit to the cutoff man, if you're missing signs, that's a huge thing. And Ron Gardenhire, I do believe, at the very least, is going to have this team playing fundamentally sound. And the word of the day probably is fundamentals, because Michigan has talked about it nonstop in terms of just breaking it down at the very basic level as the secret to success. You got to at least have fundamentals. And I think I'm confident, and maybe you are as well, I'll get your sense of it. Are you confident that Ron Gardenhire can instill at least fundamentally sound baseball with the Detroit Tigers?
Absolutely. I think he's a veteran coach who, at the very least, he's going to be a stopgap here in Detroit, that he can kind of give us some stability that I think Brad Ausmus said he had just lost. There was no cohesiveness in the locker room. And I think he was basically just throwing things against the wall to see if it stuck by the end of last season, if not even earlier in the year before that. And I think one of the headlines that really stuck out to me in this offseason is I saw it was Ron Gardenhire trying to keep it fun for the players. And it's not something that you ever really heard about when Brad Ausmus was there. He was supposedly analytical and he was super smart, but they never really talked about just, you know, going out and playing the game that they love. Absolutely, you got to be approachable as a coach, and it's hard to have that management style where you let your players work out of their own funks, because it would be one thing if Brad Ausmus came here and had a couple years of actual success, maybe getting a couple postseason victories and moving and advancing in the playoffs. Maybe then at that point he could have taken that approach where, hey, this team truly does, they know what they're doing, and I have faith that they can work through this stuff. But he came here and he came here and immediately he got swept by the Orioles in his first playoff appearance, and then it was just kind of all downhill from there. The team may have lost him at that point. So I think Ron Gardenhire is going to come in and at least be able to guide this team to being a watchable baseball team. And I think that's what we can at least hope. That's my baseline for this team this year, is that they're watchable, that I can turn it on in a random Tuesday and actually see some good baseball.
So what are you looking forward to on Monday? It will be after the first series. You're going to go out there on Monday afternoon. What are you looking forward to this first go round in 2018 watching the Detroit Tigers? Anybody you're going to peek at? What do you want to look at? I mean, they did release a bunch of new food items, some interesting stuff there with the donuts, with some hamburgers and things like that. The nacho hamburger looked pretty good. It's always interesting, in terms of the ballpark. Maybe more this year, it'll be about checking out the ballpark, the food, the amenities, and things like that. It's usually nice to watch a baseball game. Hopefully you get good weather, but at this point in time, what are you looking forward to?
On the field, I'm not huge into the specialty food. Like I took a peek and saw what Comerica Park was going to have this year. And I know in years past they had the Coney pizza, which it didn't necessarily appeal to me. I love a Coney dog, but I'm not going to shell out a bunch of money to get that. I think the last kind of niche thing that I bought a poutine dog, which if you don't know, poutine is it's normally French fries with gravy and cheese curds. And so it was a hot dog, essentially the same thing with fries, cheese, and gravy. And I mean, it was good, but it definitely wasn't worth the money that I paid for it. So I'm going to go out there. I plan to get a nice cold beer, and I'll be more interested in what's going on in the field and how the Tigers are going to, how they're going to do. The guys that I'll be watching, I already said Candelario is a guy that I'm very interested to see what he's going to do in the beginning of the season. I think another big key to this team, and it may be easy to say this, but it's Miguel Cabrera. Coming off of probably his worst season of his career, how is he going to respond, and what's he going to do this year? Can he get it started early, or is we're going to see more of the same, and are we going to see really we're now on the backside of Miguel Cabrera's career?
I'm excited to see Ron Gardenhire and see what he does. I know people do have the critique regarding his, lack of the use of analytics, but I think that at the very least, I want to see a situation in which this ball club doesn't make the same base running mistakes that they made last year. I want to see fundamentally sound baseball. If the ball is hit to the outfield, hit the cutoff man. Do not allow free 90 feet. Do not allow runners to just, run amok, because that does cost you runs. It is one of those scenarios in which the Tigers are going to struggle. They're probably going to lose a bunch of games, but it's a different kind of vibe. And there is a chance, yes, for success, maybe being around 500. Maybe the thing that people are looking towards is some questions that people have messaged us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, and I want to get your sense of these two players is, do you think Michael Fulmer or Miguel Cabrera will finish the season as a Detroit Tiger? Miguel likely will finish the year as a Tiger, but there is kind of a growing sentiment on our Twitter page and a growing sentiment nationally and locally that maybe if Miguel Cabrera has a comeback year, that there's a scenario in which maybe the Tigers try to move on from him, get a haul, as well as get a haul for Michael Fulmer. Because when you start looking at some of the moves that were made, a recent move saved him $800K by optioning Blaine Hardy. They waived him, and he cleared waivers. So, he was about to be guaranteed about $850K. And then because of the fact he cleared waivers, he goes down to the minors. His salary will not be $850K. It's going to be around now $190K. So you save a little bit of money in that sense. And you just kind of get a sense that they're looking to cut corners. They're looking to save as much money as humanly possible. And so with that, you start looking at, okay, how do you improve this team and how do you shed salary? Moving on from Miguel and moving on from Michael Fulmer might bring you at least 6 to 8 players that you can jump off a rebuild with.
I don't think any player on this team is untouchable. After Justin Verlander got dealt last year, and after really everyone that we dealt last year, I think we're finally in the rebuild mode. We need to amass either more draft picks or just getting young talent. That's what we need to do, and it's really going to depend on how Miguel Cabrera does this year, if it's even worth trying to trade him. Because I would imagine any trade that we have to deal away Miguel Cabrera, we're going to have to take on a portion of his salary. So is it worth at that point what you're getting back? Is it worth it trading away Miguel Cabrera? And we're gonna have to see what Michael Fulmer does coming back from his injury and how he's going to respond in the regular season. Spring training's all good and fine, but when it really matters, that's when we need to see what Michael Fulmer is going to do. If it was up to me and Miguel Cabrera and Fulmer, and I'd put really anybody on that team. If Jordan Zimmerman, if Jose Iglesias, if those guys start performing and we can get a decent haul for any of these players or a package of these players, I would trade them in a heartbeat, because as we've seen with teams like the Houston Astros and the Chicago Cubs, and even with the New York Yankees to a smaller degree, that you build from within, you get young talent that you can develop, and you bring them up, you bring those guys up, and that's how you build a team, and that's how you have lasting success. And that's what I want for the Detroit Tigers.
Build fundamentally sound, build a team that can win well, and build a team that actually can go out there and start the process of maybe realistically going down the road, maybe like a Houston, where you struggle for 2-3 years, and at the same time, you look at scenarios in which it can be done, but the confidence level with Al Avila is not the best among the fan base. But for me, I'm thinking if you can get something for Miguel Cabrera, if he's willing to do it. Did you hear the report about him calling everybody bro, and that he's not really close with a bunch of his teammates? It kind of made it seem like he was distancing himself from the roster in terms of not knowing these dudes' names, now going into a rebuilding season. Do you think a guy like that, do you think Miguel Cabrera can go through 2018 and this kind of season and still be happy and not get disgruntled?
Miguel Cabrera can't be happy because, he's coming off the worst season of his life. Just with his age, he's getting up there, and he's gonna start going on the downward slide unless he changes his game or moves fully to a designated hitter, which I wouldn't mind him doing. I would love for Cabrera to be our designated hitter, to get rid of V-Mart, because he's a bag of bones, and I'm done with that guy. He's got to definitely see some sort of writing on the wall with any of the the big teammates that he had last year, and Ian Kinsler, JD Martinez, Justin Verlander, even Alex Avila. All those guys are gone. He is calling all these guys bro because these are all either backup players from years prior or they are new players. So I would love to be able to move on from him just because his contract is so heavy, and I'm not sure what Miguel Cabrera can really do for this team because I don't really see him as a veteran presence. I don't see him as a guy who's going in there and trying to rally a team. He's he's the quiet type. He's the guy who goes out there and just produces. And this is it's the second time now that I've seen in recent news, there was somebody who came out and said Justin Verlander not being here may be good for the team because that personality that he has kind of overshadows everybody. So maybe it would be better if we didn't have this shadow of Miguel Cabrera just looming over the Detroit Tigers and really seeing what we have in our young guys.
Did you take notice of the injury to Perez? Going to limit him for 3 months at this point in time. A pitcher that was the main cog in the Justin Verlander trade. He's going to be out for about 3 months. Young pitcher. You look at it and you say, a guy that has thrown a lot of innings, a big name for the Tigers in terms of prospects, but has now been set back for about 3 months. Some people are like, well, a guy like that you have on your team maybe has thrown a lot. It's okay if this season, this important season for him, maybe he doesn't throw as much.
I'm not too worried about it. It's what are you going to do for me in years to come? And I would much rather have him get healthy and be ready when we actually need you than to rush you out right now and maybe even hurt that arm even more.
Mm-hmm. Do you get concerned at all when you look at arms because of the fact that when you look at it right now, baseball players, when you look at these young arms, we got a lot of them, and it just seems like so many of them, with the way they've been utilized or brought up, tend to have injuries. And you look at Michael Fulmer in particular, right? He's come off this injury. He's looked good in spring training, but his delivery is violent. All scouts that look at him say, you know what? It's a really tough situation. It's really tough in that any throw could potentially cause some significant damage. Are you concerned at all about arms? Do you just say, you know what? Develop them, do it the best that you can, and you can't predict injuries?
I'm not concerned, mainly because that's the way the game is now. It's, back in the late 90s when Tommy John surgery was considered, this is the end of your career. It just happens to every pitcher. Like the big name pitchers, at some point or another, they're going to have some sort of injury or Tommy John surgery. The sports medicine nowadays is just so much better that they can come back stronger. They can really come back and have little to no impact on their game. So to try and predict when it's going to happen, it sucks to not be able to know that, and to know that at some point, probably some of your big pitchers are gonna miss at least a season. But I'm not worried. It's gonna happen when it's gonna happen.
Okay, so you're going to miss next week. I can't believe you're going to go downtown. You're going to go see the Detroit Tigers week 1.
Hey, you should be happy that I'm actually watching a game.
You going to wear the shirt?
I am. That's
okay,
that's when we initially started this. I said,
Yep.
I'm going out Monday. And before I told you, I was like, I'll wear this out.
All right, very good, very exciting. Let's take our first time out. We got to come back. I think it was a good decision on our part to not talk about the Wolverines first, give you a chance to get a little excited. And any plans for opening day?
For opening day, I will be at work, and then I'll watch the game as much as I can.
Good. Are you going anywhere? Anything in particular?
No.
Kind of slow down?
It's going to be busy downtown. I think it would be kind of crazy to try and get down there. I can save my money. I'll go home. I'll grill up some hot dogs and have the spirit of opening day.
Gotcha. Me too. I think I had planned to go somewhere, but I think that it's going to fall through. I know I have the day off. I think I might even just take a day and just cook at home and just relax.
Do it.
It's the best idea, right?
It is. You can pick whatever you want. That's some of my favorite things with like Super Bowl and all those big events. Staying at home, you can pick whatever you want to eat, and you don't have to pay ridiculous prices.
Understood. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We will hit on the Wolverines. I know it's not your favorite topic. I know that's upsetting to you to see them in the Final Four, but my goodness, the bracket just opened up, and they have a scenario in which, they're going to be probably in the finals. So we got to talk about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, but and I'll try to not tune out during this next conversation. But you're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Jason, let me tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic.com. Why do we use them? It's super easy. When Jason and I record a podcast, when we have our verbal battles, when Adam and I record the Doc and Jock podcast, we take all of our recorded audio and we upload it to Podomatic. If you're looking to start a brand new podcast, Adam, Jason, Steve, Vito, myself, we're all going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com.
Been holding it down for like a minute now. Mickey Bleep was trying to beef. It's time to finish now. The team can handle any problem. That's
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast.com. John?
Interesting, man. Some news made as we were figuring out what music to use as a bumper. Bakari Alexander of the Titans whacked. No longer the coach after 2 years.
Wow.
Surprising. It was bad, though, Jason. It was a situation in which, when the incident happened that resulted in a suspension, you saw the crowd, you saw the team win 8 games in year 1, year 2. Big commitment to him. So maybe they just said, look, his buyout might have been a huge number. And they're like, look, we'll give you this money if you'll just quietly go away. That probably would indicate that maybe there's something going on in regards to, maybe a potential lawsuit or something like that. But Bakari Alexander out after
did
2
Bakari
years.
Alexander come from?
Michigan.
Ooh.
Oh.
You didn't even ask me where that song was from.
What was it?
You
It was a good
always
song.
ask me where
I was
that song
surprised to
is
see.
from.
I was looking for. I scrolled down 3, 4 times because I'm like, why is Jason recommending a song and the first 3 things have a Wendy's thing next to it?
So it's Wendy's, the fast food chain, they came out with their own mixtape. Now, I'm not sure if you follow Wendy's on Twitter. They're actually very, very good at social media. They're always clapping back and they're always ripping on McDonald's and Burger King. And they alluded to it a little while ago that they were going to bring out a mixtape, and it finally dropped over the weekend.
What do you make of it?
It's actually the beats aren't that bad. Whoever they got to do the rapping, she wasn't that bad either. On my other radio show, they kind of had the idea that it's probably some like higher ups person at Wendy's is like who's trying to get their music career off the ground and like, oh, let them do the Wendy's mixtape. But it's actually kind of funny. I know there's some of them where they make fun of why McDonald's, why their ice cream machine's always broke, and why is their drive-through so slow. Give it a listen. I mean, it's not the greatest stuff in the world, but it's funny.
All right, realistically, Jason, I know you're not the biggest fan of Michigan. This must be killing you to see the Wolverines now get national pub for this week. They're going to be in the Final Four. It's major when you make the Final Four, but some people will kind of discredit their run because of the fact that they haven't played the biggest seeds, but they were able to get that miraculous shot. They were able to get past Houston, and look, it's not their fault that they had to play Florida
they got
State.
Past Houston.
It's not their fault. They had
the motto of this team. We got past Houston.
It's not their fault that the teams that they should have played, North Carolina and Xavier, fell by the wayside, and you end up playing the likes of Florida State to get to the Final Four. It's not their fault.
It's also not going to be my fault and Spartan fans' fault to put an asterisk next to, if they do win this national championship, to put an asterisk next to it and say,
what?
Oh, hey, you guys didn't play too many people.
Jason, if they win it, they're going to get cred because in the final game, the biggest game, it's going to be either versus Villanova or Kansas, national powerhouses. When you defeat one of those two, you get cred. So getting there.
What happens if one of those teams has like their star player not on their team?
Listen, I think that what's going to happen is that Michigan is going to get to the final game, and I just think that Villanova, if things fall out correctly, Villanova's got elite talent across the board. They just do things that Michigan does just a little bit better. And if things fall to plan, I think what you should be rooting for is root for Michigan to get past Loyola, then get to the finals and lose. As Spartan supporters, that's the greatest thing is that they're going to, all the Michigan fans are going to get lined up at the bars on a Monday. They're going to be excited, and then they're going to see their team fall by the wayside, similar to the game versus Louisville back in 2013. That's what we got to be rooting for, and I think that's what's going to happen. That's what I have in my bracket, and I think a lot of people who picked Villanova have Michigan losing in the final game. But look, yeah, it's not their fault. They do get credit for playing well. I mean, that game versus Texas A&M was unbelievable. You don't give them no credit for dropping 99 points. My goodness, they destroyed an opponent. They went in there and just shot lights out, and the days off, the performances that they had at the Staples Center were really worthy of some praise. And I know that you're not really happy in terms of talking about it, but I watched those games and they played well. Michigan is solidly coached. They're fundamentally sound. They play good. And here's the thing that as us Spartan supporters, we got to take note of. What sucked was Michigan State was not able to adapt when they weren't playing well. Michigan didn't play their best game versus Florida State, but they showed up. They were able to be gritty. And I think that's what's most surprising to most when they watch Michigan is that Michigan's gritty. State was kind of soft in that when they got punched in the mouth by Syracuse, they rolled over. And it's really sad to see that in that Michigan now, if they become gritty, as well as a team that can shoot lights out, forget it. You might be looking at the future national champion.
And as much as I hate Michigan and as much as I dislike talking about their success, I give it to them that they've played hard all year, and even though they have had setbacks here and there, they've been the more consistent team every time and time again, and it really shows where they are being in the Final Four now, even though it wasn't a difficult path to get through, or at least that's what I would say, and that's probably what a lot of people would say. But you're right. They can't control what other teams do. And who knows, even if Gonzaga or Xavier did make it through, if, Michigan would have just rolled through them, I think they would have gotten a little bit more cred from people around the country and probably even Spartan fans. But we can't control that. So they're the ones that are in the Final Four. John Beilein, he's, it is a little strange that they kind of go through their ups and downs in terms of, they were at the peak when they made it to the finals against Louisville, and then they essentially just dropped off. And now it's taken them a couple more years to really get back to this level. And I think what's going to be telling for me is if John Beilein can really continue this. And yeah, we know what his teams are, that they're gritty teams, that they focus on defense, and if they have that 3-point shot falling, they are a hard team to beat. But I think that doesn't make them a special team necessarily, because you see that with a lot of teams, especially in the tournament, when you have hot shooting teams, that they're going to give some of those teams that may be better than them struggles, because if the shots are falling, you have very little defense over that.
Okay, so you now see Michigan in the Final Four. Do you give any credit to Loyola for a chance maybe to even upset Michigan? I mean, they got this whole Sister Jean thing, and then many people are now coming out. We've had Rashad Phillips kind of talk to us a little bit, and he said, look, probably the biggest mistake that the committee made was seeding Loyola 11. That was a team that was coming off of a really hot streak going into the tournament. They probably were realistically, based on a lot of people and a lot of pundits, the way they were playing, probably an 8 or 9 seed. They're seeded 11, but here they are. They're on the verge of maybe getting to the finals, maybe even being the ultimate Cinderella. They're a team with 30-plus wins, and they play well. They shoot lights out. They got this, really cool superstar now in Sister Jean as somebody that's a really strong supporter, and she's now made national news in terms of her appeal and things like that. But Loyola has a chance. I mean, I poo-pooed at him a little bit and kind of ribbed him and said, oh, don't worry, it's a walkover. But if they play well and Michigan stumbles, the pressure's all on Michigan. Loyola's going to probably go in there and just play lights out, and they're going to have no pressure on them, and they're going to have a strong chance to play well in San Antonio. I really believe it.
Yeah, I mean, as a Spartan fan, I hope that they're overlooking Loyola, because I don't think they can, at this stage, I don't think any of these teams are going to be just a pushover. Loyola Chicago got to where they are for a reason. They played good teams. They played better teams than Michigan did. Going into the Final Four, and you said that you want Michigan to win and then lose it all on the big stage. Honestly, I'd be happy with either. Just not having Michigan win, period. But I think it's a win-win. If they lose against Loyola Chicago, they lost against Loyola Chicago when you're probably going to be favored in this game. And if they lose in the championship, they lose in the championship again. Yeah, I almost kind of want it to be kind of like the line scenario, which how can Michigan lose now? They've already lost in the championship game. Let's have them lose to 11 seed in the Final Four.
Ooh, you think that would be, how bad a loss would it be if Michigan loses to Loyola? Do you feel like, you think fans would be upset? Do you feel like it would be offset by Loyola being the team of destiny? Or
Michigan fans, I mean, they're going to be upset no matter way if they lose. But
what's a realistic expectation as a sports fan if you support Michigan? Because now they're in the Final Four. Most people, when they had the bracket, didn't have Michigan in the Final Four. They thought maybe they'd lose to Xavier or North Carolina and things like that. They were a 3 seed. But now that Michigan's there, should Michigan fans expect Michigan to win it all?
Absolutely. They should expect it. I
don't think so. I think realistically, if you're being a fan, you can expect it. But I do just think that on the eye test alone, Villanova and Kansas are better than Michigan. I think they can score better. They can defend better. They got a little bit more high-end talent. Now, can Michigan win? It wouldn't be a major upset to see Michigan hoist the national championship trophy. No, it wouldn't be a major upset, but I think it would be very surprising because I think Villanova and Kansas are just better teams.
I think Villanova is a better team, and absolutely, if it does come down to U of M and Villanova, I think Villanova should have no issue. I think Kansas, though, is another story. I think Kansas, even though they're a 1 seed, I think they can be beat, and we've seen that in years past. They definitely have the talent, and they would probably be favored in that game. But I think Michigan has a better shot going up against Kansas as it would against Villanova. But I mean, that is getting ahead of you. You have to go in. You have to be focused on this Loyola Chicago game because this, like you said, it's a team of destiny, and I think they may have God on their side.
Okay, now you told me, I was shocked to hear it, and I'm a guy that loves competition. Even if my team's not in it, you said you've checked out of the tournament. Like, personally, you weren't down Thursday, Saturday. You weren't really invested in watching the other contest. I felt like Duke-Kansas was a thrilling game, down to the wire, went to overtime. We all got to see Grayson Allen choke it away, have a bad game, and he ends his run there without much success and things like that. And
Only a national championship.
Look, it's good, but I think this season was a blown opportunity in terms of the landscape. I think that if he had performed in that game versus Kansas, they probably have another deep run. But you're telling me that March Madness has caused you to check out? How is that possible? I think that's a violation. I think this tournament has been one for the ages. Just Loyola alone with Sister Jean, you had the biggest upset in the history of the tournament. You had UMBC play 2 games really well. They got to the second round, and they had a chance, if they had played better and closed it out down the stretch, to advance. How do you check out in this tournament? There's a lot of great basketball. I say that probably my love for college basketball was strengthened in the last 2 years covering it, but now also being closer to it and seeing the tournament up close in the last 2 years has made me appreciate it much more. Young cats going back and forth. The parity level is super strong. You don't really know game to game what's going to happen. Great storylines, great shots. You have some powerhouses, and then you also have a Cinderella. This tournament's made out perfectly. What's wrong with it? How do you check out?
So I will preface this by saying this is me right now. If this was a couple years ago, I think I would definitely be into it. I'd be at least checking into games, and especially at this point into the Elite Eight and going into the Final Four. But this kind of almost goes for all sports minus football, because football is a different thing altogether. But for Tigers and Red Wings and Pistons is where I am in my life with how much I work and with the limited time that I get to spend with my kid and with my wife is, unless I'm watching my team and I'm watching a good product, it just isn't worth me dedicating that time to, have it be some random Thursday and be like, I gotta check out these Wings because, they're going up against the Montreal Canadiens, the two of the worst teams in the NHL right now. So it's hard, and that's where I am right now. In a couple of years, the kid's grown a little bit. I have a little bit more time. I'll be all the way back in it. But if it's not my team and they're not doing good, I wanna watch something good. I need my time to be spent well.
Okay, so it's one of those things where it's not that the tournament itself, it's not that it's Michigan State. A lot of it has to do with your time and your ability to kind of allocate it properly.
Pretty much. I mean, and I recognize that the 16 seed winning is an amazing thing, and that just a lot of the things that are going on in this tournament have been really exciting, and that I think there have been a lot of really close games. It's not my team. I don't really care to watch Michigan win, so I'm not going to watch those games. I can find that on my ESPN app and find out if they lost or not, and I'll find the highlights and watch Michigan cry. But otherwise, I am checked out from March Madness.
Checked out, huh?
Checked out from them, checked out from the Pistons, checked out from the Red Wings. The Red Wings have an awful product.
Yeah.
The Pistons, I looked at the standings. They're not mathematically eliminated yet, but I think they would essentially need to run the table and have Miami pretty much drop dead.
It's one of those things where I know it's tough in terms of using your time, but I do believe that what you could do is just cut the time with your wife and just watch more sports.
Yeah,
the kid is good. The kid is great.
See, that's where you and me differ. I
think it's an easy fix.
Because I know you have no issue going into the other room and watching a sports game while your wife is in the other room. I want to hang out with my wife.
That's cool.
And that's why I say football is different, because she has no problem watching football with me.
See, here's a scenario in which I got lucky in that my wife filled out a bracket, and guess who's number one in the listener challenge?
Probably her.
Mrs. Andrea is number one, and she's loving life because she picked 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. She didn't pick Loyola, obviously, of Chicago, but she picked Kansas, Villanova, and Michigan, and she's got Michigan winning it all, so she's going to be really gloating and having a good time with it. But I got Villanova winning it, and I'm not sure exactly I think she has Villanova in the final game, but in the end, she was excited. She was like, I have Kansas, go, go. So she was excited. It's something that she gets into, and she's done pretty well in the brackets the last 2 years, being someone that doesn't watch it all that much. But before we get out of here, I know we got to talk about Michigan State real fast. Many people have been throwing a lot of shade at Michigan State. They're looking at the disappointing season. They've seen Michigan bypass them in terms of tournament success the last 3 seasons. Michigan State early exits haven't been to the Sweet 16 in 3 years. That seems like an eternity for basketball fans. But Michigan State has a decent class coming in. They got some solid talent that's going to be there, and they still have some talent returning if Jaren Jackson decides to come back and play. Do you just feel like right now that we just got to let kind of the emotion subside? We got to let this tournament run go by and hope that Michigan doesn't win it all, because if Michigan wins it all, forget it. It's just going to be nonstop Michigan coverage for the better part of a summer. But Michigan State can come back. I think the question that people were asking is, can Michigan State ever come back? It's going to be a lot tougher nowadays with how things are, but I would expect at least 1 or 2 more runs from Tom Izzo. He probably does have to get back to his roots a little bit. He does got to open up offensively, and I think he's got to adapt a little bit. But I think in an offseason, I do think there's a chance for growth for Tom Izzo. I don't see him falling by the wayside and having a 4, 5, 6 year run with no tournament success.
Yeah, I wouldn't see him having prolonged, bad seasons. And I mean, this season, it wasn't a bad season. They didn't win when it actually counted. So it's really going to come down to what can Tom Izzo do, and whether Jaren Jackson or Miles Bridges or Nick Ward comes back or leave for the NBA. I don't think that really matters, because I think they're always going to have some sort of talent on this team, whether it's, 5-star recruits or if it's the guys that they just need to play those roles, which is what John Beilein does. Is he has those guys that fits his system, and it just they work. So I think it's going to come down to Tom Izzo, and you're right. He's going to have to go back to what he used to do when he built this team, which is that's what John Beilein is doing, and what he's done is that he's built this program from the ground up, and I would hope that Izzo doesn't have to go from the ground up. I think he at least has somewhere to stand on. Yeah. But he's got to do something, man. We can't go into next season just with the same old mentality of, hey, if you're not listening to me, you're going to be on the bench. If you have these good players, you kind of got to roll with them.
Okay, so you're not as angry now, a couple weeks past the exit. You're just waiting for next year and the recruits, and you still feel like Tom Izzo is the man for the job. You're not like me, just kind of even willing to speculate about the fact that he maybe needs to be replaced or some new blood maybe needs to come into Michigan State. What'd you make of the reaction that people gave you to your comment? If you remember last week, we put a video, got some good numbers, some good hits regarding is Tom Izzo overrated? And one of the things that you brought up that I knew would bring up some discussion and debate was you used two examples. If you look at the video on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, it's me and Jason from last Monday, and you said that, the elite coaches right now are Bill Self and Krzyzewski, which was interesting because at the time, Kansas was not in the Final Four, and Bill Self has a history of being a choke artist, and Izzo's resume is a little bit better. So more people obviously said, look, Krzyzewski's in a class by himself. He's the king of the mountain. He is the master of coaching. You can't compare anybody to Krzyzewski. The name that they gravitated towards, and they threw a lot of comments our way and said, how can you compare Izzo's resume to Bill Self as a way to call him overrated? Well, what do you make of that response? And it got some good buzz based on what you said. A little bit of a hot take, but you used the name Bill Self. You want to justify and clarify?
I mean, I get it. They both have one championship, but I point to his success, his recent success at Kansas, that they've won the Big 12 regular season for the past 14 years. I mean, Michigan State won the Big 10 regular season this year, but they haven't had any prolonged success like that. And I mean, you can argue the Big 12 isn't as powerful as the Big 10, but still there's something to that success, that he's won 8 Big 12 tournaments, that he's been to the Final Four 3 times. How many times has Izzo been to the Final Four?
I think 6 or 7 times.
6 or 7 times. How many times has he made it to the actual championship game?
Twice.
So how many of those?
See, now Bill Self, you actually, you might have, talked as a precursor. Bill Self might be on his way to a second. That Kansas team can play.
Yeah,
that Graham character can do some things.
He's in the Final Four, and I think if any team can go up against Villanova and take them down, I think it would be Kansas out of this Final Four group. So if he goes in there and actually goes into the championship game, wins another one, then yeah, he's better than Izzo.
Oh, Bill Self overall is better than Izzo? Or currently, you say or overall resume?
I think you have to say over the past couple of years, then yeah, Bill Self has definitely been better than Izzo.
Okay, you're sticking with it. That's what I love about you. You have a fair point, and currently Bill Self has a good thing going at Kansas. But I think what has affected Bill Self's reputation is way too many early exits. He's had some teams that had talent, but they were not able to deliver and close the deal. But Tom Izzo, I think with the class coming in, if he just has a little bit of a slight adjustment in terms of his willingness to use these players more, play them, and maybe ease up a little bit on his toughness and kind of adapt and be a little bit more fun, I think that Michigan State can come back. I think if Tom Izzo survives all the scandal stuff, it's safe to assume that Michigan State can still be a national relevant program. They're not going to just go away and disappear. I don't think this is the end for Tom Izzo. This has to be used as motivation by him. There's no way he goes out like this. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years with no deep runs. He brings in talent. There are some situations where you just got to make modifications. Even at 63 years old, you got to make some modifications to your program, and you got to do some good things. Anything related to the Lions that caught your attention, signings, or you're just waiting for the draft, getting geared up? Something that was brought up, though, the Lions don't have that many draft picks this year. In terms of some teams have loaded up with trades and things like that, they might have up to 8 or 9 picks. The Lions, in terms of total number of picks, have one of the lowest in the NFL.
I think they're still building, and I think they're going to try and do what they can with the picks they got. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them, maybe make a trade, get more picks in the draft, and we'll have to wait and see for that. Signing that I actually don't mind. They went out and signed the Seahawks old tight end Luke Wilson, who he's a local guy, and I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do, because I think he was always kind of in the shadows of other players when he was in his time in Seattle. When he first started, they were the run heavy team, and when they moved more towards a passing attack and letting Russell Wilson open up the offense, they had went out and they got Jimmy Graham. So he's always kind of been playing behind that guy. I am interested to see what he can do and how he'll fit in this offense.
Great podcast recording, Jason. Now you put the challenge on me. Maybe I'll get a guest here, or what do you prefer when you're not here? Like, I know back in the day you're a radio guy. Some hosts, I kind of get a sense, because I've interviewed a lot of radio guys and things like that. They're like, don't bring nobody else in here because then you could get replaced. Or do you like a guest host, or do you like me rolling by myself? As the co-host of this show, how would you like it handled when you're not here?
Just bring in somebody good.
Somebody good? Good looking? Okay, deal. We'll do it.
Hey, you're the boss.
Thank you very much. So listen, anytime you come in, obviously, I have great respect for you. I love Mondays. I love the chance to get to record with you. I love the fact that you stick to your guns, even though you're wildly wrong a lot of the time. It's great. It's no big deal. And I will point out every time you're wrong, and I'll definitely point out every time I'm right. I bet 1,000 in that. When I'm right, I'll tell you. When I'm wrong, you never hear about it. It's great to be the boss, right?
Right.
No, I think I'm trying to think now. Really, I'm trying to think on the fly when I have been wrong. Can't think about it, so that's a good thing. Maybe I'll bring it to the table next week. The times that Doc was wrong, because I've been right pretty much quite a bit.
Probably for a lot of Lions things.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Okay, I'll have to look.
Thomas Tater.
They did trade him. They ended up trading him.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah,
after
you never
just
brought it up.
Murdered me.
Yeah.
You put it in my bio on our website.
I have to edit that. All right, look at you. All right, good deal, sir. For Jason Jarvi, the King, I'm the Doc. Follow him on Twitter at Jarvi the King. Follow the network. You can message us 24/7 at Detroit Podcast regarding all things Detroit sports. See everybody next week. Looking forward to it.
Peace out.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.